Welcome. This is the Mentally Whole podcast. I am your host, Lauren Green. This podcast is a safe place for us to have weekly discussions about mental health, Christ, personal development, and the tools to live our best lives. Stay tuned for a new episode. So hey guys, welcome to another episode with the Mentally Whole podcast. If you've never heard me before, my name is Lauren and here's a new episode. So today we have a wonderful guest, Nakia Williams. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting my invitation. So fun fact about me and Nakia, we went to Walden together, probably like 3 years ago now.
Yeah, it's been about 3 years, huh?
Since we graduated. Yes, it's been about 3 years. That is a long time ago. So this episode is a continuation of last week's episode about the gift of grief. So we are continuing to discuss grief and loss. This week, I feel like it's necessary just because of COVID. What else? I don't know, everything that's happening in the world in 2020 and 2021, because we're still not done the pandemic. You know, it's still here today. So tell us about your journey as a therapist.
So, of course, like you said, I attended Walden University, graduated in 2018. It's been a journey. I am now a licensed graduate professional counselor, and the journey has been great. I mostly work with children and their families, and mostly children who've experienced trauma because that's just a passion of mine. But the journey has been great. It's just something I've always wanted to do. So, I am also still learning, and I love, learning through people. So that's something that I enjoy.
Yeah, I feel like as a therapist, we always have to constantly learn about stuff, like all the time. Because there's always new information, or there's always something new happening, like in the world. Like during the pandemic, I learned how to play Among Us. And, that's just what I learned to do because the kids were like, oh, we're playing Among Us, Miss Lauren. I'm like, what is that?
Yes. And it's like everyone is different. So you have to find a way to reach them, right? To build that therapeutic relationship. So it's been very interesting doing this virtually. We all had to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And engaging, keeping children engaged virtually is
the hardest thing.
But yes,
it is the hardest thing.
Yeah,
in the
but
world.
I do. I love it. So, you, like you said, you have to figure out, you have to tap into the things that they like and go from there. So it's been interesting, but fun.
Yeah. And last year alone, we really had to have lots of conversations around grief and around loss. I mean, not just like physically somebody dying, but like the loss of what we thought 2020 honestly would be.
Yes.
I feel like that's a conversation I've been having with a lot of my coworkers. Like we had to really navigate that with our clients because, I work with kids and teenagers too.
Mm-hmm.
So, March 13th, I was in a school building, I was seeing children, and then that Monday, no school.
Done. And then how do you adapt that fast? And that's exactly what happens with loss and grief. Like 1 minute it's this way and the next minute everything's different.
Yeah, it was a sudden quick change. Like they made an announcement one day, the next week it was a wrap. And they've been out of school almost a year coming up, and having to navigate that on top of, them actually knowing people that died from COVID, on top of possibly their parents not working, because I have clients whose parents don't even have jobs right now. On top of not seeing their friends.
Not being able to see your friends.
Friends.
Not being able to go, like even to get a break from your parents.
And to go to school. Like it's just, I feel like everybody is just everywhere emotionally. And this point. I mean, the first question I think we should probably get into is the stages of grief or the grieving process.
Absolutely. So I will say that the process is different for every individual.
Mm-hmm.
No one person grieves the same. It's the stages are not in order.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that each person will go through all of these stages or that they will go through them in this order. Some people will have anger before they have denial and
Mm-hmm.
other things. So the stages of grief are denial and isolation, anger, bargaining, which is, I don't know if you've ever just wanted something really, really bad, right?
Yeah.
I would do anything if I could have this again. I would
Yeah.
do, if only we had, tried to be a better person toward them or things like that. Depression, which we all know. I think that's one of the common symptoms that everyone knows that you'll experience.
Yep.
Some sadness, and maybe regret.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last stage typically is acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
When you've actually come to terms with the loss.
Yeah.
And whatever that may be, like we said, it could be of a loved one, it could be of a
Mm-hmm.
friend or a family member, or it could be of something that you actually just love, right?
Yeah.
It was so funny. Oh, what is the name of this movie? I think it's called Abduction. It's really interesting because I just watched this movie last night and I was like, let me click on this. It's on Netflix. I believe it's called Abduction, but it's about loss and grief.
Hmm.
So what happens in the movie is
I'm gonna look it up.
is these two parents. It explains grief, like all the stages of grief play
Like to
out in
a
this
T.
movie.
Hmm.
Yes. So these two parents take their one daughter
Yeah.
on a road trip. Okay.
Okay.
They go camping. So on this camping trip, they arrive at this campground and the mom goes into the camping store and the dad is watching some woman on the beach where he's supposed to be getting ready to go fishing with his daughter, right?
Yeah.
So the mom comes out of the store and the dad, she eventually asks dad where the daughter is. They call her, I think her name was Taylor. They call for Taylor and they keep calling Taylor.
Yeah.
And Taylor is nowhere to be found. So this entire movie is about focusing on finding Taylor. They have the police. They are accusing everyone in the movie of abducting Taylor.
Oh no.
And Taylor died 10 years prior to this, I believe.
Oh.
So they were still in denial about Taylor.
Dying.
Yes.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I did not expect that to be. I'm sorry I had to tell you about the end of the movie, but it was just so dramatic that I was like, wow. But yeah,
was it like a Netflix? Was it like a Netflix original, or was it just like one of the movies they just put on there?
I'm not 100% sure, but you know how it tells you the top movies?
Yeah.
When you go on Netflix, I think it was like number 10.
Yeah, that's wild that they were in denial for that long. Like,
yeah, it was for years and they did not. So what finally happened and they actually killed people that they thought hurt their daughter, the daughter who was not alive. I think at the end of the movie, the dad was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot play this game. I can't play this game. She's gone. She's never coming back. Right. But at some point in the movie, the mom said to him, if we don't have Taylor, then we have nothing. What do we have? So he was saying, well, we have each other. And she was like, we have nothing if we don't.
Have a daughter.
So I think
that movie was wild.
It was consumed with,
all the stages of grief.
But he was doing it much worse because of the mom. You know what I mean? I think he had come to the acceptance sooner than the mom, but because
she was in denial.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go look at that.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to kind of get a different understanding of it, more in depth, great movie to watch.
Let me think. I'm trying to think if I've seen any movies about grief and loss. The most recent movie I watched, which was on Thursday, I watched this movie called American Skin. It's been, making its rounds on social media these days with, who is it? Nate Parker, Amari Hardwick, a whole bunch of great, amazing people was in this movie. I'm not going to spoil the movie because it just came out a couple, last week, I feel like. But it is a good movie about grief and loss and what happens to a family after, because the events take place a year after the person dies in the movie. So just go watch it. That's a spoiler.
Yeah, I heard that it was really good. I haven't watched it yet, so
it'll have you in all the feelings as if you lost the person in the movie.
Yeah.
It had me frustrated, angry, sad. I was like, this is a lot going on. I can't even. I didn't do anything after the fact. I was like, I can't watch nothing else because yeah, it was a good movie.
Yeah, you probably needed to do some type of something to get you back in balance, right? With your emotions.
I had to watch something funny. I had to go find something on TikTok, Instagram, something, because I was like, this is a lot happening in this movie. But that also happens when you're actually grieving in real life, that you need to do something. Anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You want to try and, keep open connections with others.
Yeah, because in that movie, this isn't really a spoiler, but in the movie, the father was talking to someone and he was like, oh, I just want my son back. Almost as if this is what I want and that's literally what I want, and I'm not leaving until I get it. And I was like, yeah, but they're
that's
dead.
Not gonna happen. Yeah, and that's that denial, right? That's part of denial. I'm not accepting this right now. Yeah. So definitely he was going through his stages of grief.
Yeah, and possibly could count as bargaining as well.
Yeah.
He was trying to get his son back, but that wasn't going to happen. Another thing about the stages of grief, there are several different, I guess, varieties of the stages of grief.
There are.
I learned
Some have 7.
Yeah.
Some use 7, some use 5. I typically go with the 5, but yes.
Yeah, I like the 5 because it's easier. I learned that when we were in grad school, when I was an intern, and she was like, yeah, there's many different kinds of stages. And I was like, why? But the one that you mentioned, I forgot the name of the one that you just mentioned, but that one is the most common of stages of grief.
Yeah, I definitely believe so. And the thing is that everyone grieves differently, right? So, and there's no order in which you'll go through these stages regardless. So yeah, maybe some do denial and isolation separate. I'm not 100% sure with the other stages, or with what the other 2 were, because I typically go with these 5.
Yeah, some do reconstruction and working through the loss. Some also add in shock and denial.
Yeah.
Some people are in a state of shock when they lose someone, which is normal. Some of them just group certain things together, but they make it into 7 stages.
Okay. Yeah, I have heard of the restructuring and the shock. So, yep.
And so
one of the immediate, that's one of so denial, I guess in this concept, shock will be a part of the denial, because it's the defense mechanism that buffers the immediate shock of the loss. That's really what denial is. Yeah.
So from the episode I did last week, one of the points that she made was that grief is a full body experience. Like, no doubt that's a full body experience when someone dies, because even if you don't show it, your body still is reacting to grief. And I was like, yes, this is a good point that you just made. Because it reminds me of the book Trauma Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps the Score. I never actually read that book. I probably should read it. But how does grief affect our body?
So, like you said, some people wear their emotions on their sleeves, right? You can see it outwardly. And then some, it's very just internal. And they may not cry at all. So that's why you shouldn't judge how another person is grieving or say that they aren't really grieving, because everyone grieves so differently. I think that, of course, you could have physical symptoms, right?
Yes.
You could, it can literally start to affect you emotionally and physically. And of course, one of the main things to look out for is that stress. One of the things that I learned is there is a real thing called broken heart syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if what is his name? I can't believe that I cannot think of his name. The news broadcaster that just passed away. What was his name?
Oh, Larry King?
Yes. So Larry King. So what a lot of people may not know is that his two children passed away, one in July and one in August.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was reading something and it said no one should ever have to bury a child. No one should have to bury their child. So it's really a thing, broken heart syndrome. So the symptoms vary depending on the person. Yeah. So of course, stress in the body can trigger all types of physical symptoms. Headache. Some people get sick. They get nauseous. Some people can't eat. Right. They don't want to eat. They don't want to move around. They don't want to do anything. They lose interest in activities and socializing. They have a hard time getting up and just going to work, just doing normal daily life skills that, are required. So yeah, it looks different for us. It looks different for us all.
Yeah. I mean, you can also have, the fatigue kind of goes, well, that's just what you just said about not getting up and doing anything. Fatigue, they could also have like stomach pain and like chest pain, because your body is still responding to the information, even if you don't really have like a outward expression of it. So you could have chest pain, and you could have, what did I just say? Chest pain and
you said stomach pain. Yeah, I think I talked about it. Yep, most definitely. And I'm pretty sure there are other symptoms. But everyone will experience them very differently. It's different for each person.
Yeah.
I just think you just have to be mindful of how you're feeling, right? That's the main thing, is to be mindful of how you're feeling. And then talk to someone, once. Just talk to someone if you're not interested in talking to a therapist right away. A confidant that, kind of share with, that can kind of, you can, kind of lean on during that time. So they can make sure that you're eating, that you are, able to do the daily things that are required, someone to kind of keep you on your toes.
And taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Making sure you're not falling into like maladaptive coping skills. So maladaptive coping skills are kind of like, they're not really, well, I would just call them negative coping skills, or things that really aren't like productive, so to speak. So when you mentioned Larry King, I thought of Anna Nicole Smith, because, I feel like she died shortly after her son died.
Yes.
Like it was like, I want to say he died in like October, and then the next year, I think she died in like February. And so, that goes to show that, whatever she was doing, she might not have been coping well with his loss or getting the help that she needed, because she died quickly, like right after, like months after.
It's really easy to, pick up a negative coping skill such as drinking or, just falling deeper into depression or smoking. Those are easier because it helps you to not think about what's actually happening at the moment. You don't have to deal with it. And that's why it suppresses your feelings. So that's what drugs and alcohol and substance abuse, that's what, it can help you for the moment, right? But we all have to eventually deal with it later. So you want to make sure that you reach out before, you start to pick up any of those. Like you said, maladaptive coping skills, because there is help. And you're not the only one grieving. There are groups, right, where that a person can attend, that other people have experienced the same thing. And it's kind of helpful to know that you're not alone in the grieving, and that you can have your own way of grieving, that it doesn't have to be a specific way. It doesn't have to look like what everyone else's looks like.
Yeah, your grieving process is unique to you, because you could have a whole family dealing with a loss and they could all deal with it differently. That's just how grief and loss works.
Yep, absolutely.
So we already mentioned some steps and tools to manage grief. Did you have any other steps to manage grief?
So I think that, of course, recommending, of course, that someone, you have someone to talk to, just being aware of how you're feeling. And the thing about that is people don't always know. I remember talking to this young lady, and she was telling me that she felt like she didn't have any family members. She didn't really go out anymore. She stopped being socially active. But in our conversations, the more we talked, I would hear her saying that, oh, I was at my mom's house, or I was at my sister's house, or I did this with this person, and I did that. She would basically tell me that she slept all day. But she really didn't. She really did visit friends. She really did. I think she felt guilty about doing those things. So that's important. Maybe keeping a journal, right? Writing down in a journal how you're feeling, even keeping like a list of things that you need to do daily to kind of keep you on track will help. But definitely speaking to a therapist, or going to a group grief counseling program is always beneficial. I will always say that it's always beneficial. And then keeping your social connections, right? Those are important. They really help us to grow and to stay connected to others and feel like we're loved and still cared for. They help us kind of move along in life. So I think those are very important.
Yeah, and I think when you talked about the young lady, I think you made a good point that I think sometimes we we can't identify what we're doing as like a coping skill. So like, yes, she's still seeing her friends, but like she's also coping with whichever she was going through. But, she was still seeing her friends. Like it was a way of her coping. She might not have realized that though, but I have some clients that like, I'm like, oh, well, how did you deal with it? Oh, I did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, that's a good coping skill. But they don't really put two and two together that is a coping skill. No matter how small it could be. It could be just getting out the bed every day. I mean.
Yeah. And then celebrating the loved one, right? Some people think it's like really hard to, or they don't feel comfortable doing it. Or some people feel like it's like a violation.
Yeah, I think.
Them, but celebrating them.
I think that's a cultural thing though, like not being able to celebrate because, in New Orleans, it's a whole like party when somebody dies. Like it's a whole thing. Like, and in some cultures, in some cities, they just, go to the funeral and that's it.
And then that's it. And then just talking about the person, like remembering the the good times and the good things about the person, because even though they're not here physically, right, they left some memories, and spiritually, you know, you're still connected to that person for life. So I'm just being able to sit and just think about the good times, not just focus on the loss, right? Once you get to the point where you can do that, of course, it's kind of like beneficial. What did the person like to do? Maybe you could go and do that activity with someone else, right?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, and I think that
Very helpful.
I know we're talking about grief and loss as it relates to like dying, but some of these things can also be used when like breakups, relationship breakups, that is also a loss, or friendship breakups, that's also a loss as well. And so some of these things can be applied to that situations as well.
Absolutely, because with COVID, we lost so many things that we love to do.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I was just talking about the other day, I had not moved my car because I hadn't gone anywhere. I think from just the smallest things, right, that matter. So
like getting
sunlight definitely matters. Going outside, getting sunlight, it definitely matters. And I didn't do that. So I think my car was parked on Sunday and I did not move it. No, it was, so I went out on Sunday, but I didn't move my car because I went to lunch with my sister. Okay, but I hadn't actually went back out again until Friday.
Oh.
So that's like that's like a big gap, like where you talk about isolation, right?
Yeah.
Because denial and isolation. So when you talk about like the loss during COVID times, a lot of people feel isolated. So just me thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I have not been out of this house. I have not been with really another person outside of my home since Sunday.
Yeah.
And it can feel very isolating. Some people love to do like so many activities that were outdoors, socializing with other people, and you just lost that sense of connectedness. So it's definitely grieving. You have to grieve that loss, and some of us still are, because I definitely felt it when I had not gone outside.
Yeah, like, with 2020, we grieve the loss of a lot of things, like what we thought 2020 would be. At the beginning of 2020, everybody was like, yeah, let's go. It's going to be a great year. And then stuff started to unfold and it started going crazy real fast at the beginning of 2020, from like the loss of Kobe to stuff about COVID. And then what else? I don't know, just, politics, the presidency.
Yeah, I was about to say
like all of that, was just a lot happening in 2020, to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. Like all of that was a lot. It was a lot.
Very heavy, right?
It was a lot.
And then 2021 kicked off and it was still very heavy. Everyone's like, yay for 2021. So that, maybe we could.
Yeah.
It's an extension of 2020.
Yeah.
They're the same.
Yeah.
The Capitol was stormed in like the first 7 days. I mean, it's been a lot. It's been a
wild ride.
Yeah. So we're grieving. We're still grieving.
Yeah. I mean, even with people who love to travel, some people have traveled during the pandemic, because I've been seeing people in travel groups on Facebook in Mexico. And I'm like, y'all still traveling? Like, what's going on?
I wish that was me. Listen, at one point, I was ready to risk it, okay? Like, it's become that bad that I'm like, okay, I think maybe it's safe now. And then the CDC put up these guidelines like, nope, you have to test negative if you leave out the country in order to come back. So I'm like, I guess I sit my behind right back down.
I mean, I did risk it, but where did I go? I went to New Jersey. I went to Atlantic City, but I was just so, I just needed a vacation. Like, I just need to go somewhere that wasn't my house, that wasn't the grocery store, that wasn't my normal places that I've been going to in the pandemic. Because it's like, I get it. Like, you just need to go somewhere. Like, I just had to go somewhere during the pandemic. It was just
I have been doing like little staycations. So I do those every couple of months. So I do go to another state.
Yeah.
I am COVID safe. I'm only with one other person.
Okay.
And yeah, so, but yes, I have still traveled, just not on a plane or
Yeah.
out of the country. So,
Yeah, even people that travel, I know that they are probably going through it right now because they can't get on a plane, like they normally would. What else happened that we lost and grieved?
I mean, so many phenomenal people passed away in 2020. Um,
Yes,
yeah. And
you are
then,
correct.
yeah. So, upon grieving all of the things we can no longer do, it's just accepting, right? Because this is a part of the grief process,
Yeah,
accepting where we are now, which
yeah,
is really no traveling,
yeah,
not a lot of um, socialization with your family or friends,
yep,
right? Really no dining. If you like to eat, you're not sitting
yep,
in restaurants, dining or socializing. And the majority of people are working from home. So even if
yeah,
it was just good for you to go to work and socialize with like your coworkers to
yep,
get that in, you're really not doing that either. Not able to go to school and do it with your friends.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's been it's been a wild ride. Been a
I
wild
mean, I
ride.
think the only thing that we can do is really just start where we at right now. Like we can't go back in time to when COVID first came to the United States and be like, hey, warn whoever. Like we can't go
Mask up,
back.
yeah, and shut down.
Yeah, we can't do anything like that. We just have to like move forward where we are right now and the
Yeah.
conditions we have. Like
And this is yeah. And just thinking about, I think that it's so somber. I would say it's because so many people, there has been so much loss of people and things,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the evictions, when you talk about the
Jobs.
job loss,
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about losing loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been really heavy on the world, in the world.
Yeah.
So
It's been It's been super heavy. 'Cause I did mention in the last episode that I looked up, I think it was on CNN or Fox News or what, it was an article, and it said that, 2020 was the deadliest year that the United States has had since probably forever. And that's because of the pandemic. As I said, like maybe like 4 million people died, something like that.
so it's been about 400,000, and they said by February, the end of February, I believe, is
Mm-hmm.
on track to, yeah, to have a 500,000 people will have died from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's it's been. You just have to honestly count your blessings.
Yeah.
You know,
Practice gratitude.
yeah,
That's the only thing
gratitude,
I can say.
absolutely.
Um,
And I know you asked me earlier. It was the 5 stages of grief that I um always reference is
yeah.
Kubler Ross.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, we have to
but yes,
practice. Yeah, we have to practice gratitude. Because it could be way worse, It could be much worse than what it is.
it could.
Like we could literally be on a real lockdown, like China. China was locked down for months.
Yeah, they were saying if we would have did that, we would
Yeah.
be in a better situation now. But we
Yeah.
can't go back like he said.
Yeah,
So
we
we
can't go back. We can't. All we can do is move forward with the
so we have to move
vaccine.
forward.
You know.
So, in adapting to moving forward,
Yeah.
right? Some of the things that we've had to be creative about
Yeah.
and being able to socialize and being
Yeah.
able to still, I was seeing Thanksgiving and Christmas Zooms
Mm-hmm.
and what do you call it? Just people socializing and having happy hour via Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Me and my
happy
coworkers
hour
have
Zoom.
a happy hour on Zoom.
Happy hour Zoom and things like that where you can still socialize. It's not in person, but it's safe. Um, Even I play games with my clients on Zoom. Yeah, we play all types of games.
I think with grief and with loss, you have to pivot. At some point, you have to just pivot, like somewhere down the line, just pivot. And like I saw a whole like a virtual concert with like it was a full-fledged production. They just recorded it and just like sold it, and I was like, this is great. I feel like I'm at the concert.
Yes, those are the things that we've had to adjust to, right?
Yeah.
And accepting this new normal for what it is right now, because it's here. I hear COVID is here to stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear COVID is here to stay. So, hopefully the loss of life will diminish. Once everyone is vaccinated and we acquire herd immunity, these are the things that I'm hearing. So,
I mean, I heard there was like during the pandemic, I want to say there was a commercial. It was like, I don't know if it was like a Johnson & Johnson's commercial, but the lady was like, oh, I was born like during the pandemic of like 1920 or 1921, whatever it was. And it was the same thing. Like lots of people died, but eventually like we got better. Like there's some green, there's some grass on the other side somewhere. But it's going to take a while for that to happen.
There is some sunshine at the end of it, right?
There is. There is sunshine. It's just going to take a while with the vaccine, herd immunity, people who've had COVID before. Technically they have like antibodies of COVID in them because they had the virus. Yeah, it's going to take a while.
Yeah. Yep.
So where can my listeners find you?
So I have a Facebook page for my nonprofit, which is called M&T, the letter M and T Project Inc. They can find me there.
Okay.
And I do respond to messages and everything, but yeah, they can find me there at M&T Project Inc. And my name is Nakia Williams again.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
This was a great conversation about grief and loss. I hope you guys learned something, took notes, share this with your friends and loved ones, because I know somebody knows somebody that lost somebody. So yeah, this has been another episode of the Mental Yo Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.